Hello and welcome to this training on how to achieve the top SATs grades and get ready for year 7 and a new secondary school. And we're going to be able to do this in 3 simple steps without tears or frustration or avoidance over the next 12 weeks. Sound good? This training is for you if you're a parent whose child is in maybe year 4 or 5 or 6, who probably should be working at the top of the class because they're quite bright. You might be wondering why they're not coming home with reports saying they're working at greater depth or above expectations. Your child may be even getting frustrated or even tearful and might be avoiding homework. And you want them to reach new heights, but are finding it hard to get the right help from school or even from having tried some tutors. You might even be trying to help yourself, but find it hard to grasp the modern concepts or techniques, or just don't have the time really to fit it in with your busy schedule, or end up battling with your kids. Or you might be a parent who just values your child's education. You want to set them up for success and great SAT scores. This training is for any parent who's prepared to invest time, energy, and money to help their child achieve top SAT scores, top sets in secondary, and a smooth transition to year 7. And if you're a motivated parent who's just looking for a clear and actionable plan to help your child stay motivated and maybe even enjoy learning again, then this training is for you. So I'm just going to quickly run through what we're actually going to learn in the training. So I've broken it down into 3 key elements. Number 1, which is locate the gaps preventing the top SAT scores. We will teach these topics so your child can master them, which will give them confidence. And this is something schools can't do due to time constraints. They can't go back over topics your child has either misunderstood or missed because they have to move on to the next topic. Second step I'm going to show you is the accelerate step. In this, your child is going to grasp key topics needed for top SAT scores, which is going to open up opportunities in secondary, help with a smooth transition, and secure the top sets. Most secondary schools use SATs to set targets in secondary school. These targets can stay with your child all the way through to GCSEs, so they are super important, and I know it's a very early stage to start bringing this to your attention, but this is where successful students start building that secure foundation. The third step is challenge, because this is where most successful people or children operate. What that means is we push them outside their comfort zone. We show them a challenging concept and expect them to be able to do it. And we're there to help when it gets hard. Crazy how it sounds, this is something many tutors avoid because it's easier to keep parents happy when their child is getting everything right than to actually push them and get them to achieve exceptional progress. So that's what we're going to learn about today. But before we actually go into the training, let's agree, it's no good being here with distractions in the background. So let's switch off Netflix, put down the iPhone, because your child gets just one shot at SATs. There are no retakes. So if I promise to show you in this training how to help your child get top SAT scores, then you're actually going to take action on what I share. And if that means that you're going to get your child to watch this training, if your child isn't already here, that's great. You've taken an action. And if you're the child and you're already here, fantastic. I'm now talking to both of you. If it means that you're going to go away and just have a go at implementing the steps I show you, that's also great, so long as you agree to take action. Or if you actually want help, I can show you how we might be able to help you with one of our student offerings. But I'll show you this and tell you about this at the end. I want to show you that committing to a step, however small, is how you make a start on something like this. So maybe you're wondering why your child isn't seeing the progress that you want. Or maybe your son or daughter gets frustrated with schoolwork, or even tearful when help isn't at hand. Perhaps it's got to the point where homework is left to the last minute or just ignored for as long as possible. And many parents try and help themselves. So if that's you, how's finding time to fit that in amongst your busy working day working for you? I mean, is it easy to fit it in around your life, your family, your work? Or do they get in the way of improving those SAT scores that you want? Or perhaps you feel that you can't help because you found school a challenge yourself and you want a better result for your son or daughter. Perhaps you've heard yourself say, I can't do maths, or English wasn't my thing. Maybe you've found time to help yourself but found that it's not worked out too well. Maybe you found yourself wasting your time and energy and not getting as much maths and English done as you would expect. And something else that may or may not surprise you, some parents come to me having tried a tutor and still haven't seen the results or improvements that they expect. And they're left scratching their head looking for an answer to turn things around. Whatever is preventing your child achieving the scores you want, whatever the reason your son or daughter isn't getting the greater depth or working above expected levels in their reports from school, there's usually a reason why these problems exist. And it comes down to just a few things. A lot of students just rely on the school teacher. And because they rely on the school, they only have one world view. They only get one perspective. Well, think about the top athletes. My son is into basketball. So let me take Michael Jordan as an example. He had his Chicago Bulls coach, Phil Jackson, who was essentially, his teacher. But Michael Jordan wanted to become the best. So he went out and hired his own coach. And he hired one for each of the departments, if you like, needed to get him to skyrocket his talent. And the other players in that generation, they didn't do that. They do now because they realised how that can work wonders for them. So he had a training coach, a nutritionist, a mindset coach, and everything. So students who reach the top grades, they don't just rely on the school teacher because they know that's what amateurs do. So things are getting so much more competitive out there. When I was doing my GCSEs, they still had typing pools. I hope I'm not showing you how old I am. Now, we have countries like China and India with growing middle classes who our children are going to have to compete against in the future. So some parents have cottoned on to the thinking, just like these elite athletes. So this is pretty much the main reason why these problems exist. We just rely on that one-dimensional approach that we get from school. And school teachers have got a lot of children to work with. They can't individualize. They can't specialize on what your son or daughter needs. And these people, they're experts at teaching, not tutoring, not coaching. So as soon as you escape this, you can watch your child's grades skyrocket. Secondly is the winning environment. And what I mean by this is it doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't have other people around you who are reaching for the same goals, then there's always going to be times when you feel demotivated. There's always going to be times when you don't want to put in that extra day of study, or perhaps where you're finding it hard because you're missing the enjoyment factor. Okay, but look at this. This is the New Zealand rugby team. They're known as the All Blacks, one of the most influential sports teams on the planet. Now, individually, they're not the best players, but when they come together as a team, the standards rise. They put on the All Black jersey, and all of a sudden, they're extremely hard to beat. So, what we see a lot of students doing is they go and get themselves a one-to-one tutor, so they're isolated. Imagine, it's pretty much like sending your child to climb Mount Everest on their own, because that's what it's like. It's like trying to climb a mountain. Could you even do that on your own? And this is the one-to-one model. It's isolating. So kids have to delve deep and find their own motivation. And now every distraction is going to distract you because you're on your own. You might already know that I've run tuition centres for over a decade. I used to employ a lot of tutors. I found out that teachers who wanted to do one-to-one were hard to motivate. I got to the point where I actually stopped employing them because usually they weren't willing to push hard enough. And that's what the parents coming to my tuition centre wanted. Here's the thing. In a team or group, we thrive. We motivate each other. We want to have motivated tutors. You see, one-to-one is too easy for a qualified teacher with experience. When I do it, I find it boring. It just doesn't challenge me. So I have found that one-to-one teachers are sometimes teachers who are looking for something easy to do in the evenings to get a little bit more income. Or you can actually find what I call the winning environment, the winning team. The most successful people on the planet know that's the way, that's the key to ultimate success. They know that being part of a winning team is going to lead them fired up, wanting more, and feeling driven to succeed. And this is fundamental in absolutely crushing the SATs, finding that winning environment. So don't be a lone wolf, because the tribe always survives. The next problem that people are dealing with out there is study books and homework. It sort of includes the online computerized programs that you can subscribe to that you just work through, and also the worksheet based study centers. There's so much information out there right now that it's easy to bury yourself in work that doesn't necessarily get you anywhere, which can then leave you feeling demoralized. So you've probably heard of people saying you can work harder or you can work smarter. So working harder is the student who is just going to go down, they're going to go home before the exams, before whatever, before the weekend, and they're going to cram, they're going to study as much as they can, and they're going to work their socks off. Right? And it's boring, it's time consuming, and you don't actually know whether you're studying the right things or if you're going to be getting extra points in that SATs exam. And most children and parents who try this and lock themselves away in their bedrooms waste loads of time studying things that they already know. Sounds crazy, but this is so common. Think about someone who wants to lose weight. Right now, there's so many people who've failed. Yet there's loads of free diet plans and there's loads of free exercise plans on the internet. So why did they fail? Why do they fail? It's not because there's a lack of strategies out there. It's not because there's not enough information out there. It's because they can't implement it for long enough. They can't stay committed, or they get focused on the wrong thing. So it's the same with students when it comes to work. There's a ton of free resources, videos and materials out there. You can study harder, you can read more books, but if that's all it took, nobody would need any help because the information's already there. You wouldn't need tutors, you wouldn't need coaches, you wouldn't even need schools. Can you see? The problem is that this method usually results in burnout and stress with very little progress. If this approach worked, you'd already be doing it right now because the information's out there. It's the implementation that counts. You could say that the information without implementation leads to frustration. So the last one, and this is quite a bizarre one, tutors, they're usually inexperienced or they're teachers doing a little bit of tutoring on the side. And they don't really realize the progress that you guys expect and that they're able to make. They often think it's just like being a teacher and they're missing the point and the progress potential that many students have. In fact, this might be the reason that if you've tried a tutor, they just can't quite do what you're expecting. And it's often because they don't realize the progress and improvement that can be made or how to get that progress quickly. And it's that progress potential that we want to look for in your evaluation to make sure that we can get that unlocked. So these are the 4 areas that you might want to consider and escape from. But first, here's a little bit about me. My name's Luke Scrutton. So there I am, and you can read the facts on the page, but I want to tell you this. I love helping parents who are desperate for their sons and daughters to get the SATs grades you know they can and secure that smooth transition to secondary. After working with thousands of children just like yours, I know you're probably struggling, perhaps feeling your child is under-challenged at primary school or not fully engaged, and know how important it is getting into those top sets in secondary, which are full of the kids who want to learn. So meet Charlie. He was struggling, but mainly with his English. Mum realised his attitude to school changed when he started with us. Then he improved his handwriting so that she could read his stories. He started wanting her to be able to read them, which was new. Within months, he was catching up and had been moved to top table. Now you know how it works. Let me tell you about the strategy that Charlie used. He was introduced to my SATs Boost method. Now, it's broken into 3 areas, and I'm going to be sharing with you the strategy, the actual steps, but as we just pointed out a second ago, strategy alone doesn't work. So what I'm going to share with you is more than just the strategy. It's a new way of learning that I've developed from years of experience, sometimes doing it the wrong way so that you don't have to. It's my 3-way approach, my learning trifecta. So think of this. Imagine you've got a platform that you need to hold up in the air. That's the learning trifecta. In the middle there, you're working above expected levels, working at greater depth. You're in top sets in secondary school, which is your goal, right? Now, that platform or the SAT scores that you want need to be supported. And it's these 3 pillars that support that. Otherwise, it just topples over and failure isn't a result that you're looking for, right? So it's got to be good to be supported, good to be challenged, good to have the right strategy and the right environment. The reason why most students fail to get top grades is they only have 1 or 2 of these pillars to support it. So it all comes crashing down. And that's the SATs Boost strategy. We have those 3 pillars that we just spoke about. And I'm going to share with you right now what they are. So that's how to achieve success. Once you've got all 3 of those pillars in place. And that's what Michael Jordan did. He used the Chicago Bulls teammates. He was never isolated. He was never alone. He then brought in people to train and to coach him on the right habits so that he could implement the strategy that he was given by his coaches. And it can be applied to your child or to you as a student to help you get the top SAT scores. So now we know that. Let's dive into the first step of the SATs boost method. All right, so first thing I want you to do is dead easy. Just go and grab a pen and some paper. So just pause this if you can and pick up that pen and paper. I want you to make some notes, and then at the end I'm going to have something ready for you if you stick around. I think you're going to absolutely love it, and I'll show you that you can actually implement what we're going to walk through for you right now. So the first step I call locate. Because at school children are expected to study topics and concepts when they've missed some previous work, the challenge becomes sometimes impossible or certainly very difficult, because there are some simple concepts that have been missed and that they need these concepts locating. Whilst most children are tested frequently at school, teachers don't have the time to go back over topics and concepts that need covering. So if your child has missed something important, there might not be too much help for them to grasp that concept. So children start to lose interest, become easily distracted, or don't want to put their hand up and start becoming too shy to ask for help. Parents sometimes try to help them study everything, like a shotgun approach, and worse still, children then end up getting frustrated or tearful or start avoiding homework. The problem is that most kids don't know what topics that they've missed or don't understand fully. And school is just testing them on this year's work. And just imagine the amount of testing you would have to go through to go back and find everything that has been missed or not fully understood or they've forgotten. And schools, they continue to move on through the curriculum because that's what they do. So it's like trying to build a Jenga tower when you've got too many pieces missing at the bottom. So what happens is they spend too much time feeling anxious, being distracted, or focused on things that are just out of their reach. And what they really should be doing is jumping back quickly, making sure the basic concepts are secure, then tackling the topics that school wants covered. That's why most parents end up struggling to help their children. They end up studying harder, not smarter, which often ends up in frustration and tears. And here's the thing, I get really super clever kids who, they zone out at the start when the easy stuff's happening. And then the lesson ramps up and they've missed that bit at the beginning because they zoned out, started daydreaming. And so they miss stuff that way. So this applies to kids who are even doing all right. What your child really needs is someone who can make sure basic concepts are secure. You can identify the key knowledge gaps when you have the topics mapped out with all the concepts that children need for their topic. So when a problem topic is identified, we know exactly which concepts we need to check and hone in on quickly. And the great thing is, when you go back and teach these topics, it usually doesn't take long because they're usually the easier concepts. But when they're learned, the new topics, the harder topics, fall into place and stop being a challenge. Just like the girl putting back the Jenga pieces to make her tower more stable. The strategy allows your child to learn the concept that he or she is grappling with in school now. The next pillar is accelerate. Schools have a curriculum to follow, which means they have to do things in a restrictive order. This means they can't focus on a topic that's really important to your child because they have to get through everything. And how do you get ahead if you can't go over the key topics your child needs now? For example, the one he or she didn't understand because the basics weren't in place. And the other thing that happens in schools is that just as your child masters one topic, school throws in something new or unrelated. They never get ahead of the game. Imagine trying to find your way out of the maze, a maze that you're seeing for the first time. You don't know which way to turn, and it's like the first time you've seen it. So, which way do you turn? It's going to take you longer to find the exit, and it makes things easy for them so that they're getting help in their tutoring and their coaching and at school. It's making everything make more sense, and they're grasping the work that they get at school quicker, and they're getting on to the harder work that's delivered in school. So the next step is accelerate. Schools have a curriculum to follow, which means they have to do things in a restrictive order. This means they can't focus on a topic that's really important to your child because they have to get through everything. And how does your child get ahead if you can't go over your key topics now? For example, the ones he or she doesn't understand because the basics weren't in place. And the other thing that happens in school is that just as your child masters one topic, school throws in something new or unrelated. They're never ahead of the game. Imagine trying to find your way out of a maze that you are seeing for the first time. You don't know which way to turn, and it's like the first time you've seen it. So which way do you turn? It's going to take you longer to find the exit. What if your child learned topics ahead of time? So when done at school, they're ahead and it just clicks immediately. How about jumping straight into the important topics that open doors to the harder strategies and concepts so your child can earn even more points in SATs exams? So that's what the students who get ahead do. They get to see what's on the other side of the maze ahead of time. They get to learn the material in advance. We focus on what I call the hidden gems, topics that kids earn points for, and which open doors to harder questions and concepts. Just like the top sports teams, if perhaps a certain fixture is coming up, the managers go and study the opposition team. They watch videos, they go and watch them play. So they start to train to play a certain way to get an edge on their opponents. They learn the specific tactics to play against that team because they know what the opponents do in real life. So they're ready a few plays in front. That's what the best teams do. So this is what the best students do. They get ahead of the curriculum. So when they're in front, they can just focus on learning the hard bits because the easy bits at the start of their lesson in school, they already know them. Do you see what could happen to your child's SAT scores if we could learn topics for their SATs ahead of time? The third pillar, or the final piece, is called challenge. This step is where we're going to push your child to the higher SAT scores. Have you ever heard a parent say, "My child isn't challenged"? I hear it all the time. This is certainly true of many bright kids who get restless when the work is too easy. And it's easy to see that. What we don't see as much are the children who are happy within their own little comfort zone. So what happens to these kids? What happens when you push them? Surprisingly, many of these bright children just crumble, preferring to sit within their comfort zone. And that isn't usually going to get you the results you want. Sure, your teacher might be saying they're doing okay, but is that good enough for you? But if what matters most is progress and retention, does your child need challenging? So I'd like to ask you that very question. What do successful people do when challenged and they find themselves outside their comfort zone? Do they quit? Or do they take stock, ask for help, in order to move forward. Imagine trying to lose weight, but you just eat the same things as always. It's not going to work. You have to try something new. But that's quite hard, right? And this is where we have to change our habits. What bright children or children who are underachieving need to get in order to get the highest SAT scores and become successful adults is to get used to being outside their comfort zone. That's where the progress and the learning happens. We can do this by learning topics and concepts children find hard. This pushes them outside their comfort zone, but it's important to acknowledge when this happens. Not because we're going to take the pressure off, but because we want them to learn to deal with it and to improve and to feel supported doing that. This helps build confidence and resilience. So while your children learn English and maths for their SATs, they also learn to expect success. They recognize the uncomfortable feeling is the feeling they get right before the feeling of success. Think about if you were to jump into a cold swimming pool. It's uncomfortable at first, but once you've been exposed to the water for often enough, for long enough, and you've spent more time inside, it's no longer such a challenge. Stepping outside your comfort zone and learning more challenging concepts is a little like this. And this process feeds into stopping exam anxiety as well. So kids feel okay and can deal with questions that appear challenging in their papers. So they can start picking up the marks on the hardest questions. So let's have a quick recap. First is to locate, so you can identify the knowledge gaps in your child's learning so that we can work smart by focusing on the topics that are making things a little harder for them. So we can build that strong base of concepts similar to the Jenga tower being built on a strong foundation. Next up is accelerate. We are going to get ahead by focusing on the hidden gems, topics that score points and open up doors to concepts needed for the highest SAT scores. These are the SAT scores that will open up top sets in secondary school and top grades later on. I know you're thinking this is a long way off. This is the way that the system works. If you fall behind now, things get harder later on. So we're going to get ahead. So the next topic studied at school isn't like a maze. So your son or daughter gets it from the start and is able to understand the hardest concepts or parts of the topic. Do you see how this becomes a double up on the effectiveness of the time your child spends studying? And the last step is challenge. This is where we learn the habits of successful people by repeatedly stepping outside our comfort zone and acknowledging your child's wins and successes. We build up resilience, confidence, and exam readiness, and an expectation of success. So when it comes down to you jumping into that freezing cold pool, which is your SATs exam or your end of year tests in year 4 and year 5, your child doesn't freeze. You are comfortable, or your child's comfortable. You're confident and not anxious. And pretty much you just know what's coming. Like this guy who jumped in the ice cold lake when she knew what was coming. She's happy and able to go out and crush it. And it's this step where you will really see the measures and the progress, the retention. Don't be that person, a student who's like the person going on a diet and never jumps on the scales and therefore never knows just how far that you can push it and how rewarding that can be. So you've just got to have that challenge. Otherwise, you're studying without really pushing. In other words, just underachieving. So here's Danielle. Danielle's English was okay, but she didn't get maths. Her favourite phrase for maths was I can't do it. She quickly learned the topics that she had missed, which was causing her problems with her maths. She continued to improve and ended up working at the top of her class for both maths and English before SAT started. So I just want to congratulate you for actually making it this far, because you've watched this shows me that you're either a student who's really motivated to do well, or you're a parent who needs to find a better way to help your child out. So what I want to do is bring you back to the agreement that we had at the start. You'll remember you made a commitment to take action. And there's all sorts of different actions you can take. But if you don't take any action, then nothing's going to change, which is why you watch this video, right? And the real action, just like the students I told you about earlier on in this training, decided to take things into their own hands and to use a proven framework and expert help so they could avoid mistakes, because they saw that they've only got one shot at this. They've only got one shot at SATs, just like Michael Jordan did when he wanted to become the best. So let's actually have a serious chat about how your child, or if you are the child, can get started getting the guidance and the help needed to get the highest SAT scores, so you can get into the top sets in secondary and actually target those top GCSE grades later on. I know it's a long way off, but kids that succeed are building the foundations now. So you can focus on skills and concepts and work smart within the framework that the SATs Boost method gives you. If that makes sense, we can talk about what it would look like to work together. So if I can show you that I and my team can help, then I will be 100% committed to you. So that's what I expect back from students I help. So there's two choices. One is guesswork, which I know you're probably not into, as you wouldn't be watching this training. But then there's a proven framework, which means that our work can be focused in the right places. And on this side, I want to see what these guys have in common. Michael Jordan, best basketball player probably ever to live. Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world with his Amazon company. And J.K. Rowling. Well, Harry Potter is one of my family favourites, but probably should mention that it's a tremendously successful franchise now, as well as an amazing book. So like these guys, I follow a proven framework each and every single time because I know it works. These guys don't guess their way to success. Yes, they work hard, but they don't rely on the hard work. They find what works and then work hard on that. So they've got that in common. And they are at the top of their games. Wouldn't you like to get a proven framework? And if that's what you want to do, you might already have booked in to speak to me. And if you are, I can't wait to chat about how we can help you. We'll go through what the SATs Boost method can do and build out a unique plan. And we'll have a look at what it will look like for you and your child personally. If you haven't booked in yet, look down below this video. If you're watching it on my Facebook group, maybe you're watching on my website, wherever you're watching it, there might be a button somewhere. Just click that button and you'll be able to book a student success session or an evaluation with me. If you've clicked it, you might have seen a screen like this one. So just find a date that's convenient for you, click to book it in, and then I'll reach out to you to confirm that. When I do reach out to confirm, please make sure you reply because we get a lot of bookings in and I have super limited space. So I want to be able to sort out who is super committed. I want to make sure you're in there. So we just need you to respond to that message to confirm your child's spot. These places are limited. We only take on a handful of students who are committed. So we're going to want to confirm your slot. I am looking forward to speaking to you. So if you have booked in already, I can't wait to have a chat. If you haven't, look down below, get booked in. Watch out for that message to confirm your spot, and we'll speak soon. And I know attending the training shows me that you want to take action. Action takers are who I really like working with. Parents who really care about getting the best education. But if you're the child yourself, even better, I'm looking forward to helping you reach for success in the future. So get that session booked in, and I will talk to you soon.